It's like when you hear people talking about, well, how will we, solve a shortage of food? Oh, we need GM crops, we need new technology. Clearly new technology means we get more food, and if we've got more food, we can feed poor people. It's obvious. Well, here's a tip. We invented the tractor, and the tractor made a lot more food. We've had the tractor for 100 years. None of it's quite made it to the people who we profess to have all that concern for. So there's a difference. We love the difference because it allows us to fudge an important point. There's a difference between saying certain things give us the potential to solve problems, and that those, if we pursue that path, we will actually get around to solving it. So whether it's inventing tractors, GM crops, or doubling world economic output, all of those things, yes, increase the potential, the capacity to go and address those issues, such as the ones listed in the Millennium Development Goals. But just because we've given ourselves the potential, history has shown that we don't actually have the desire or the willingness, or perhaps the political ability to make it happen. So in reframing the question of sustainability, the question is not just are the Millennium Goals sustainable enough, it's if you try to achieve all those things, would that be sustainable? Now, there's two answers to that, luckily. One's yes and one's no. How could we possibly achieve all those things? Well, let's start with the negative first. If we just pursue the path that we've pursued at least for the last 50 years and said, look, maximising the rate of economic growth is the be-all and end-all, and it gives us the capacity to solve all our problems, even if we finally had the epiphany in the next 20 years that maybe we should direct some of that economic growth towards the people that have missed out for the last 50, the planet's told us we can't keep doing that. So one way to tackle the Millennium Development Goals could be to continue with that previous trajectory, but finally get around to sharing some of the spoils. But it's too late, because put my economist hat on again, opportunity cost. Economists love to think about opportunity cost, about constraints on behaviour, except when the constraint is this new one that's popped up for them in the last 2 decades called climate change. Even if we wanted to pursue 4% economic growth and share the spoils, what the science is telling us very clearly is the atmosphere has said, too late kids, you missed the boat on that one. So unfortunately, despite our enormous wealth, we're not quite rich enough at the moment to address the Millennium Development Goals, and the planet's saying we won't let you get richer. That's the bad news. The good news is we could share. We could actually say, gee, we're rich, collectively. I'm not saying everyone in this room's rich. Right, but as a country and as a planet, we've got more material resources than we've ever dreamed of. How, over time, can we change the allocation of those material resources in ways that are going to make the Millennium Goals achievable without that planetary constraint kicking in and telling us we can't do it? Now, I'm not suggesting that's going to be easy, but I also don't think it's going to be nearly as hard as we might like to think, or that those that like things the way they are might like to think. And the reason for that is that so much of the things that we do that are material and energy intensive, that we allegedly do to deliver welfare and well-being for ourselves, actually make us kind of sick, tired, depressed and stressed. I mean, if you think about the transport system, did we really plan 50 years ago for everyone to sit in 2 tons of metal dragging through a city at 5 kilometres an hour? Was that the goal we set for ourselves after World War II? Or did we just stumble into a very inefficient, ineffective form of transport, which, if we replaced it with something like imagine if you could invent something like a train, right? You might just be able to significantly switch an enormous amount of resources and at the same time reduce people's cost of living enormously in such a way that not only are they better off, that the planet is better off, but at the end of it, there's a lot of resources left to go and solve better problems than building more roads and more cars and bigger ones to drive on them. I mean, in Australia, we know that public transport's sort of like communism by stealth, you know. Yet, sadly, no one's told people in New York, Tokyo and London that public transport is actually what you build a global capitalist city on. Literally built on a foundation of a public transport system. In Australia, we have people that want Sydney to hold 10 million people, and we think that bus lanes are an inconvenience that's too high a price to pay. So we do have to, the point is that there are simple things that we can do individually and collectively which can radically shape not what our income is, but the material intensity, the energy intensity of the ways in which we behave. Because if we do want to tackle the Millennium Development Goals, and we do want to stay within the constraint that we can't ignore, and that is climate change, we're going to have to make some major changes in our behaviour, individually and collectively, whether we like it or not. If we actually plan for it, then we might actually be able to achieve all those things on the wish list. Now, because I haven't got PowerPoint, I don't know how much longer I should talk for, but let me just finish a couple more minutes. But it's a nice way to get a hint from the MC, isn't it? Well, see, I've got an opportunity cost, and I don't want to think what the bathroom's going to look like when I get home. Let me just frame it for you like this. I'm an economist, as I said, and we can make addressing climate change sound as hard as you want us to. And for the people that haven't wanted any change for the last 2 decades, have paid some of my colleagues a lot of money to make it sound really hard and really expensive and really not even worth tackling. Economists have run around for a long time saying, gee, look, there's a lot of uncertainty here and you want us to come up with plans to address climate change, and Tony can't tell me what the cost in human health is going to be to 2 decimal places in 50 years' time. And the climate scientists, well, they're not even sure what the weather's going to be on March 22, 2074. How can I, as an economist, who can't predict inflation next month, who can't predict interest rates in 12 months' time, how can I be expected as an economist to take climate change seriously when Tony can't get his stuff together? The climate change people, who knows? How can we? It's best that we don't do anything for a while we wait. Because we need certainty before we can act. Because we get certainty all the time, don't we? We had certainty when we went to the war in Iraq. We have certainty when we deal with the Y2K bug. As a society, we can't make decisions when there's doubt. We just sit like rabbits in headlights. So economists can be really good at making anything sound sensible or ridiculous. But more importantly, economists have played a very important role in suggesting that policies to address climate change, they're just so complex you couldn't possibly understand them, and we're having very big fights about them. Well, you can make policy as hard as you want, but the hardest policy doesn't make it the best policy. And we confuse precision with accuracy all the time. And it's a very dangerous thing. So, one of the big questions that economists can't answer precisely is, well, what would the world price of carbon need to be if we're going to tackle climate change? Is it $15 a tonne? Is it $25 a tonne? Is it $70 a tonne? They're all round numbers, by the way. Isn't it lucky that no one ever comes up with anything that got cents involved? Right. So while we talk about the precision, they always drop the cents off.